Imagine, like, looking a perfectly rational, intelligent adult right in the eye and telling them that to start a business meeting, they need to smash frozen water with a hammer.
Right, yeah, you'd sound completely unhinged.
Exactly. Or, imagine finishing this grueling mathematics exam, walking out, and telling your professor that the test was actually a baked dessert.
I mean, if you take the English language and translate it literally, word for word, you don't just sound confused, you sound like you're hallucinating.
It's true. And that is the exact trap that catches so many intermediate language learners. Like, if you're a B1 or B2 English learner listening to this right now, you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. You learn the vocabulary, right? You memorize the grammar rules. But then you step into a real conversation and suddenly everyone is talking about flying coins and sinking boats and camels breaking their backs.
Which is exactly why we're here today. If you're joining us on this deep dive, whether you're commuting or making dinner or actively studying, we are totally bypassing those dusty, outdated grammar textbooks.
Absolutely. We're looking at the real stuff today.
Right. Our mission today is to decode 20 of the most common, everyday English idioms. These are the exact phrases you're going to hear in movies, in podcasts, international work meetings, and just at the local coffee shop.
And I aren't just going to give you dictionary definitions either. We're going to look at the psychology, the hidden history, and, the actual social mechanisms behind why native speakers use these bizarre inside jokes.
Because that is fundamentally what an idiom is, right? Our source material points out that an idiom is basically an expression where the meaning of the phrase is entirely divorced from the individual words.
Yeah, exactly. If we dig a little deeper into the cognitive linguistics of it, idioms are essentially social shortcuts.
Social shortcuts. I like that.
Yeah, they're highly efficient ways to transfer really complex emotional information without having to, over-explain yourself.
It really is the ultimate linguistic inside joke. I mean, think about it. You have a group of friends, and someone says one random word, like pineapple, and the whole table just erupts in laughter.
Right, and the outsider's just standing there looking at a piece of fruit, completely baffled.
Totally baffled. They know the dictionary definition of a pineapple, but they don't know the shared history. And that is exactly what it feels like to be a language learner. You know the words, but you're locked out of the shared cultural history.
Which leads us to the golden rule for our entire deep dive today. And it is so important. Do not translate.
Yes, do not do it.
We really can't emphasize this enough. If you try to map these phrases word for word into your native language, the whole system just breaks down.
Right. So what should they do instead?
Instead, we're going to focus on the situational triggers. We need to look at the feeling, the environment, and the human friction that causes a native speaker to reach for one of these specific expressions.
Okay, let's put this into practice immediately. We aren't going to just list these off like a textbook. I want to walk through a hypothetical but, incredibly realistic timeline of a chaotic week.
I love this idea. A new project, maybe a new job, just a messy situation.
Exactly. So we have to start at the very beginning, right at that point of initial contact. You walk into a room full of strangers, the social tension is thick, everyone is just awkward. How do you actually get the psychological gears turning?
Well, you have to address the tension, which brings us to our first phrase, break the ice.
Break the ice? Okay.
The meaning, of course, is to make people feel more comfortable at the beginning of a conversation or a meeting. But the history of this is actually fascinating.
Oh, really? It's not just a metaphor about winter.
No, not at all. It dates back to the era of early maritime exploration. Large, heavy ships would literally be sent ahead to ram into frozen rivers and seas.
Wait, they would just crash into the ice on purpose?
Yes. They were breaking the solid ice so that the smaller, more fragile trade boats could follow safely behind them in the cleared water.
Oh, wow, I love that. So when you use an icebreaker in a meeting, like a joke or a quick story, you're basically acting as that massive heavy ship taking on the initial risk.
That's exactly it. You are absorbing the social risk. I mean, silence in a room of strangers feels solid and impenetrable, almost like physical ice.
Yeah, it really does. It's so uncomfortable.
Right. So by speaking first, often with a bit of humor or vulnerability, you shatter that solidity. You create a safe channel for the smaller boats, the other people's thoughts and opinions to flow through without being crushed by judgment.
That is such a great visual. I actually saw this happen perfectly just last week. We had this huge cross-departmental Zoom call, and everyone was on mute just staring at the screen.
Oh, the dreaded Zoom sound.
It's the worst, totally dead air. But My colleague Sarah finally unmuted and told this ridiculous, like, 30-second story about how her cat just destroyed her keyboard.
And let me guess, everyone loved it.
Instantly.
Yeah.
3 other people unmuted to laugh and share their own pet disasters. I remember texting another coworker during the call saying, everyone was so quiet at the beginning.
And what did they say?
They texted right back, yeah, but Sarah told a quick story and really broke the ice. It was just instantaneous relief.
That mini dialogue you just shared perfectly captures the retrospective nature of the idiom. We usually only acknowledge the ice once it's been broken.
Right, yeah.
But once that channel is clear, you face a completely new problem. Just because the water is flowing doesn't mean all the boats are sailing to the same destination.
Oh, exactly. You can have a great, relaxed conversation, but still be completely out of sync on the actual work, which is where our second phrase comes in, on the same page.
A classic.
Yeah. I always picture a choir for this one, like 100 people holding sheet music. If I am looking at page 4 and you are belting out page 12, we are going to sound like a train wreck no matter how relaxed we are.
The choir analogy is perfect because it highlights the necessity of shared reality. On the same page basically means to agree, or more accurately, to possess the exact same understanding of a situation.
Right. It's that cognitive alignment you need before you actually do anything.
Exactly. And from a social dynamics perspective, it's a brilliant piece of diplomatic language for work or planning.
Wait, how so? Isn't it just checking if someone understands you?
It's softer than that. If you ask a colleague, "Do you understand me?" it sounds aggressive, like a teacher scolding a child. It implies a strict hierarchy.
Oh, yeah, that feels super condescending.
Right. But if you say, "Before we start, let's make sure we're on the same page," you are making it a shared responsibility. You're looking at a metaphorical third object of the page rather than pointing a finger at them.
That makes so much sense. It removes the ego completely. I actually use this constantly with my spouse when we are organizing our weekend.
Oh yeah, give me an example.
I'll say something like, so the meeting is at 3, not 4, right? And when she confirms, I'll say, exactly, now we're on the same page. It feels like closing a loop.
It's a great tool for clarity.
So we've broken the ice, we are on the same page, the plans are set, now the actual work begins. And this is where we have to evaluate the reality of the task in front of us.
Assessing difficulty is a universal human behavior, right? And English has some highly specific, deeply cultural ways to express it. Let's look at the absolute lowest level of difficulty. Idiom number 3, a piece of cake.
Okay, I have to push back on this one. I mean, I understand that the phrase means something is incredibly easy. Like, if a friend asks, was the presentation difficult? And you say, not at all, it was a piece of cake.
Right.
But why cake? Baking a cake is actually incredibly difficult. It requires chemistry, precise temperatures, perfect timing. If you mess up the baking powder, the whole thing is ruined. So why does this mean easy?
You're thinking about the production, but the idiom is entirely about the consumption.
Oh.
Yeah. The phrase originated in the late 19th and early 20th centuries in America. It was largely tied to cakewalks, which is a pretty complex racial history.
Yeah.
But the core linguistic idea evolved to represent the act of eating the prize.
Eating it. Got it.
Right. Eating a piece of cake requires zero chewing, zero effort, and it just floods your brain with dopamine. It is the ultimate low-effort, high-reward experience.
Okay, that totally makes sense now. So when you call a task a piece of cake, you're signaling that it caused you zero cognitive friction.
Exactly. Like the test was a piece of cake.
Oh, okay, the consumption, not the creation.
Yeah.
That tracks. But here is the reality of our hypothetical, chaotic week. Almost nothing is a piece of cake on the first try.
Unfortunately, no.
Right. When you are learning a new software or trying a new workflow, it's brutal. It's frustrating.
Which brings us to idiom number 4, a phrase that describes the neurological shift of learning. Get the hang of it.
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, it means to learn how to do something that was initially awkward or difficult.
I'm obsessed with this phrase because it perfectly describes muscle memory. It's like riding a bicycle.
That's a great analogy.
Right. The first time you get on a bike, your brain is trying to mathematically calculate gravity, pedal speed, and balance all at once. You wobble, you fall.
It's overwhelming.
But eventually, there is this microscopic moment where your conscious brain gives up and your subconscious takes over. Your body just knows how to balance. You literally got the hang of the machine.
And the physical origin here is likely related to handling tools or weapons, finding the balance point or the hang of a scythe or an axe so that it swings naturally.
And that makes perfect sense, the weight distribution.
Exactly. Psychologically, this idiom is fascinating because it is fundamentally optimistic. We almost always use it to encourage someone who is currently failing.
It's so true. We're promising them that the friction is temporary. Like, I remember teaching my dad how to use a smartphone years ago. He was so frustrated just jabbing at the glass.
I think we've all been there with our parents.
Totally. And he asked me, is it always this difficult to type on this thing? And I told him, at first, yes, but you'll get the hang of it. And he did.
See, optimism.
But let me throw a wrench into this optimism.
Right.
What if someone suggests a solution that they think is a piece of cake, but you know for a fact is going to be a nightmare?
Then you need a defensive idiom. You need idiom number 5. Easier said than done.
Easier said than done.
Yes. This phrase means that an idea sounds simple in theory, but is tremendously difficult in execution. It highlights the massive gap between talking and doing.
Is this just a polite way of telling someone their idea is stupid? Because it feels like a little passive-aggressive.
A little bit, yeah.
Like if my boss tells me just rewrite the entire database by Friday, and I say, well, that's easier said than done, aren't I just calling him clueless?
You are, but you're doing it with plausible deniability. That is the social genius of the phrase.
Plausible deniability? How so?
If you say, that's a terrible idea, it'll take months, you're inviting conflict. By saying easier said than done, you are technically agreeing with them.
Yeah.
Yes, it is very easy to say while gently introducing reality. It is a linguistic shock absorber.
I see. It's like the classic New Year's resolution. Someone says, I'm just going to wake up at 5 a.m. every day and run 10 miles.
Now you just smile and say, that's easier said than done.
Exactly. You aren't crushing their dreams, but you are acknowledging the reality of a cold, dark Tuesday morning.
Right.
But let's say the task is difficult, it's easier said than done, and the deadline is rapidly approaching. People panic. And when people panic, they start cheating.
They look for unauthorized shortcuts, which is where we encounter idiom number 6, cut corners.
Cut corners.
The meaning is to do something quickly or cheaply, often with lower quality or, lower safety.
This one has such a strong visual for me. I always imagine walking around a city block. The sidewalk forces you to walk all the way to the intersection, turn a hard 90 degrees, and walk down the next street.
Right, the proper path.
But if you're late, you just walk diagonally right across the grass. You literally cut off the corner of the path. You save 10 seconds, but you trample the flowers and leave a muddy trail.
That visual is exactly right. You're abandoning the established proper path for speed. And notice that cutting corners is almost universally negative.
Yeah, it definitely feels like an insult.
It implies a lack of integrity. You aren't optimizing a process, you are degrading it. Like, if an engineer optimizes a bridge design, that's brilliant. If an engineer cuts corners on a bridge design, people are going to end up in the river.
It's the ultimate assignment of blame. Think about reading the reviews for a terrible app. You complain to your friend, why does this app have so many bugs?
And your friend says, I think they cut corners during testing.
Yes. They're making a moral judgment about the developer's work ethic. So if the work is hard and we refuse to cut corners, we hit a wall. We face the absolute friction of the task.
Which brings us to a huge crossroads.
Right. Do we keep bleeding over the keyboard or do we quit?
This is the critical juncture of any difficult endeavor. And English provides 2 highly distinct idioms for this exact moment. Let's look at the path of sheer perseverance first. Idiom number 7. Hang in there.
Hang in there. Every time I hear this, I instantly visualize that cheesy poster from the 1970s of the little kitten hanging onto the tree branch with its front claws.
Oh, yes. Looking terrified.
Completely terrified. With the bold text, hang in there, baby! It's almost a cliche at this point.
It is a cliche, but it became one because the social mechanism it represents is so vital. To hang in there means to keep going even when something is overwhelmingly difficult.
Right.
But look at the phrasing. It doesn't say succeed. It doesn't say conquer. It literally just means maintain your grip. Do not let go.
Wow. That's really profound when you put it like that. Saying hang in there is like being the person handing out those tiny paper cups of water at mile 20 of a marathon.
Exactly. You can't run the race for them.
You can't fix their leg cramps. But you are acknowledging their suffering and giving them a psychological micro boost to not quit. Like, I had a friend studying for her medical board exams, and she called me practically in tears saying, I'm so tired of studying.
And what did you tell her?
I couldn't tutor her in anatomy. All I could say was, I know this is hard, but hang in there. You're almost finished.
It's an expression of pure encouragement and solidarity. But let's look at the alternative. We are not endless machines.
Definitely not.
Sometimes hanging in there is physically or mentally toxic. Sometimes the healthiest, most productive thing you can do is to just stop And that is when a native speaker will use idiom number 8 and say, call it a day.
Call it a day. I love the finality of this. You're looking at a messy, unfinished pile of work, and you are using your authority to declare this block of time is now officially considered a complete day.
Exactly. The meaning is to stop working or finish an activity. But what's crucial for learners to understand is the tone here. This is not a phrase of defeat.
It's not.
No, it is a phrase of boundary setting. When you say, we've done enough, let's call it a day, you are implying that further effort would just yield diminishing returns.
Yeah.
You're exhausted, your team is exhausted, and pushing harder will only lead to mistakes.
Yes. It's a sigh of relief disguised as an executive decision. I remember helping my brother move apartments. We had been carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs for 6 hours.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
It was. We had one more trip left in the truck, but it was getting dark. We were starving. And he just looked at me and said, should we continue working?
Let me guess your answer.
I said, no, it's late. Let's call it a day. We'll get the rest tomorrow. It was the most beautiful sentence I'd ever heard.
I bet.
But, that was a peaceful stop. What happens when the stop is violently forced upon you?
That happens when cumulative stress overrides your capacity to cope. You hit idiom number 9, the last straw.
The last straw.
This refers to the final, often minor problem that makes an ongoing situation completely impossible to accept. It's the breaking point.
This comes from the proverb about the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Which is such a brilliant physics metaphor for psychology.
It really is.
You have this massive, strong camel. You load it with hundreds of pounds of straw. It handles it. Then you add one single microscopic, weightless piece of dried grass, and the camel's spine snaps.
Because the final piece of straw is bearing the invisible weight of everything that came before it. This idiom is entirely about history.
Okay, explain that.
You cannot use the last straw for isolated incident. If a great employee is late once, you don't fire them.
Right.
But if an employee has been late 20 times, has insulting clients, and has spilled coffee on the server rack, and then they forget to submit a timesheet, that forgotten timesheet is the last straw.
I overheard someone at a cafe gossiping about this exact dynamic. One person asked, why did she finally quit her job?
And what was the reason?
Her friend said her boss changed her schedule again. That was the last straw. The word again does so much heavy lifting there. The schedule change wasn't the sole reason. It was just the catalyst for the explosion.
And when you hit that kind of breaking point, when the metaphorical camel's back breaks,
Right.
It doesn't just affect your professional life. The stress physically manifests, your body crashes,
Right.
which naturally transitions us into our next section, how we talk about our internal physical states and personal preferences.
Because if you're stressed out, you get sick. But native English speakers have a very strange relationship with illness. We rarely just state medical facts. We use phrases like idiom number 10, under the weather.
Yes.
Which, if literally translated, means you're standing outside beneath a rain cloud.
The origin here is deeply tied to maritime history again. In the days of sailing ships, if a sailor became seasick or fell ill, they would be sent below deck down into the hull of the ship.
Oh, interesting.
They were literally sent away from the harsh weather on the deck. They were under the weather. Over time, the meaning evolved to simply mean feeling sick or not well.
But why do we still use it? Why not just say, I have a fever and my stomach hurts? I feel like in some cultures, giving the exact medical details is totally normal.
It is entirely about social buffering and politeness. In American and British corporate and casual cultures, people have a very low tolerance for hearing about bodily fluids or specific medical ailments from casual acquaintances.
Oh, that is so true. It's too much information.
Exactly. Under the weather is the perfect linguistic shield. It tells your colleague that you aren't at 100% capacity, but it politely keeps the boundary firmly in place. Like, I'm feeling a little under the weather today.
It's the ultimate polite excuse. If a coworker looks terrible and I ask, you look tired, are you okay? And they say, I'm just a bit under the weather. I know exactly what to do.
You back off.
Right. I back away, I offer them some tea, and I do not ask any follow-up medical questions. Speaking of polite avoidance, how do we handle things we just don't like? If I hate something, but I don't want to start a fight, what do I say?
You reach for one of the most culturally defining idioms in the English language. Number 11, not my cup of tea. This means that something is simply not to your taste or not something you enjoy.
This screams British understatement to me. I imagine someone being offered a cup of Earl Grey and they prefer coffee, so they say, oh, it's not my cup of tea. But has this translated globally? Do Americans actually say this?
Absolutely. While it originated in the UK, it is universally used across the English-speaking world because the mechanism is just so useful. Think about the psychology here.
Okay.
When you say, "I hate horror movies," you are making a declarative, almost objective statement about the movies. You are implicitly judging anyone who does like them.
Ah, I see.
But if you say, "Horror movies are not my cup of tea," you are completely removing the judgment from the object and placing the preference entirely on your own subjective taste.
It neutralizes the conflict.
Exactly.
If my friend asks, do you want to watch a scary movie? And I say, not really. That's not my cup of tea. I'm not insulting his favorite genre. I'm just stating my own limits. It's brilliant. No, let's flip it.
Okay.
What happens when you are doing something that is your cup of tea, something you are deeply passionate about? Your brain does this weird time travel trick.
Yes. Psychologists refer to this as entering a flow state. The idiom we use, number 12, is lose track of time. The literal imagery implies that time is a physical object, like a train on a track that you were supposed to be watching, but you looked away and the train just vanished.
It's the feeling of total immersion. You sit down to read a book at 8 p.m., you blink, and suddenly it's 2 a.m. The cognitive friction drops to zero. You completely lost track of the clock.
The meaning is to forget about time because you're deeply focused, distracted, or just having a wonderful time. What's interesting is how it functions in conversation. It is almost exclusively used as an apology, but a highly complimentary one.
Wait, really? How is an apology complimentary?
If you show up late to meet a friend and you say, "We were talking and I lost track of time," you're basically telling your friend that the conversation was so fascinating that the laws of physics cease to matter.
Oh, wow.
It's a great excuse because it highlights human connection over rigid schedules.
I see. So if a friend texts me, why are you late? And I reply, sorry, I lost track of time. It shifts the blame from my irresponsibility to the captivating nature of whatever I was doing.
Exactly. Or hopefully the listener is enjoying this deep dive so much that they're currently losing track of time.
Let's hope so. But let's be real. We don't just lose time because we are having fun. We lose time because the universe is chaotic. Unpredictable things happen that shatter our schedules.
Navigating chaos is a massive part of the human experience, and our language definitely reflects that lack of control. This brings us to section 5, dealing with the unexpected, and idiom number 13, out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
It means for something to happen suddenly, entirely unexpectedly, and without any prior warning.
The visual for this is my favorite on the entire list. Picture standing in a massive open field. You look up, and there's a perfectly clear, bright blue sky. Not a single cloud anywhere.
You feel completely safe.
Totally safe. And then instantly, a lightning bolt strikes the ground right next to you. Where did it come from? It came right out of the blue. It's an evolutionary shock.
Yes, the phrase is actually a shortened version of a bolt from the blue. It describes an event that had zero leading indicators. There was no buildup.
Like getting a text from an ex-partner. I have a friend who is happily going about his life, and he told me, my college roommate called me out of the blue after 5 years of total silence.
Wow.
Right. He didn't say, my roommate called me unexpectedly. Saying out of the blue carries the emotional shock of the event, like in a conversation. Did you expect that message? No, it came out of the blue.
It really emphasizes the surprise. Now, when a lightning bolt hits your life, it usually destroys whatever careful plans you had laid out. The foundation is gone.
Which leaves you in a state of suspended reality, perfectly described by idiom 14. Up in the air, meaning undecided, unresolved, or uncertain.
Think of this like throwing a coin or a piece of paper up into the air. While it is flying, the result literally does not exist yet. It is a state of pure potential. You cannot know the outcome until gravity pulls it down and it lands.
It represents a lack of cognitive closure. We use this heavily when discussing logistics, travel, or complex negotiations, right?
Absolutely. If someone asks, are you going to move to London? And you say, I'm not sure yet. Everything is still up in the air. You're signaling that you're waiting on external forces to resolve the situation.
You are powerless until the coin lands. So if your life is up in the air and things keep happening out of the blue, how do you keep from losing your mind? If you fight the chaos, you just get exhausted.
You have to adopt a philosophy of non-resistance. You have to use idiom 15. Go with the flow.
Go with the flow. This is pure linguistic stoicism. I picture a leaf floating on the surface of a fast-moving river. The river hits rapids, it turns sharply left, it drops over a small waterfall.
And the leaf just goes along for the ride.
Exactly. If the leaf had an engine and tried to fight the current, it would be destroyed. but the leaf just yields. It goes exactly where the water takes it.
To go with the flow means to relax and accept what happens without trying to control it. Psychologically, it's a yielding of the ego. When you realize your plans are useless, you pivot to accepting the present moment.
I use this on vacations all the time to lower everyone's blood pressure. We get to a new city, the museum is closed, it starts raining, everyone is stressed.
A classic vacation nightmare.
Right. I just throw my hands up and say, look, we don't have a solid plan anymore. Let's just go with the flow. We'll walk into the first pub we see and see what happens.
Like, what should we do after lunch? I don't know. Let's go with the flow. It instantly reframes the disaster into an adventure.
But here's the catch. You can't just float down the river forever. Navigating this unpredictable world means we have to rely on other people.
And interpersonal reliance requires evaluating truth, assessing trust, and managing difficult shared realities. This brings us to Section 6, Truth, Trust, and Shared Realities. Let's start with how people avoid difficult truths. Idiom 16, beat around the bush.
I love the history behind this one. It's from medieval bird hunting, isn't it?
Precisely. In the 15th century, hunters wanting to catch game birds would hire beaters. These people would walk through the woods and hit the bushes with sticks to scare the birds out into the open nets.
Wait, really? Just hitting bushes with sticks?
Yes, but they would only beat around the bush, never directly hitting the center, because they were afraid of waking up a wild boar or a dangerous animal hiding inside. They were literally avoiding the core of the issue out of fear.
That is incredible. So when we say someone is beating around the bush today, it means they're avoiding saying something directly, usually because they are terrified of the social bore that might jump out, like anger, tears, or rejection.
Yes. They will talk in endless circles, bringing up irrelevant details, flattering you, discussing the weather, anything to delay delivering the actual bad news or asking for the difficult favor.
I've totally been on the receiving end of this. I had a vendor who couldn't deliver a product on time. He called me and talked for 10 minutes about supply chain economics, global shipping lane delays, his warehouse manager's health.
Just everything except the actual delivery.
Everything. Finally, I lost patience and said, look, I need to tell you something, but it's complicated. Wait, no, I said, don't beat around the bush, just say it. It's a demand for courage.
It really is. Okay, but what if someone finally stops beating around the bush, but you know they were a chronic exaggerator?
Yeah.
Or the information is just a wild rumor?
You must apply a critical filter. You must use idiom 17. Take it with a grain of salt.
This is another one with ancient, wild origins. And this goes back to the Roman Empire, right? Pliny the Elder.
Yeah, that's the widely accepted theory. Pliny the Elder wrote about a supposed antidote to a deadly poison, and one of the core ingredients to make the antidote work was a single grain of salt.
Adito salis grano.
Right. Over millennia, the poison morphed into a metaphor for toxic, false, or exaggerated information, and the salt became the skepticism required to safely ingest it.
So when you take information with a grain of salt, you aren't calling the person a flat-out liar. You are just acknowledging that their words need to be chemically altered by your own skepticism before you can safely digest them.
Exactly. The meaning is, do not completely believe something. You accept the data, but you keep a healthy, critical distance from it. Like, I would take that rumor with a grain of salt.
If a coworker whispers, someone said the company is closing, a mature professional responds by saying, I'd take that with a grain of salt until we know more. It stops panic.
It's an intellectual defense mechanism. Now, in a world full of rumors and unpredictable chaos, we have to protect the people and things we care about. We have to share the burden of vigilance.
This is where we use idiom 18. Keep an eye on, meaning to watch or monitor something.
Remember our golden rule from the beginning, no literal translation. If you translate this literally, you are popping your eyeball out of your skull and physically leaving it on top of a briefcase? It sounds like a bizarre horror movie.
Thankfully, no biological detachment is required. The phrase signifies a temporary transfer of trust and responsibility. It is incredibly common in transient social spaces.
Right, like every coffee shop in the world. You are working on your laptop, you need to grab a napkin, but you don't want to pack up your entire bag.
It's such a hassle.
It really is. So you look at the stranger at the next table and you say, I'm going to get some coffee. Can you keep an eye on my laptop? And they say, sure, I'll keep an eye on it.
It is a fascinating micro-contract of human trust. You are asking them to extend their zone of protection, to include your property. And when we extend that protection, when we start looking out for each other, we realize we aren't facing the chaos alone.
Which perfectly sets up idiom number 19, in the same boat. This means to be in the same difficult situation.
I visualize a tiny, fragile wooden rowboat in the middle of a dark ocean during a violent storm. It doesn't matter if you were the captain sitting in the front or the deckhand sitting in the back.
If the boat hits a rock and starts taking on water, everyone is going down together. Your fates are inextricably linked.
It is a brilliant idiom for showing empathy. It is almost exclusively used to comfort someone who feels isolated by their failure or their struggle. By saying we are all in the same boat, you are actively removing their isolation.
It's so true. In my first year of university, I was taking a notoriously brutal statistics class. I stared at the first homework assignment for hours and understood nothing. I felt so stupid.
Math can do that to you.
Oh, absolutely. I finally turned to the student next to me and confessed, I don't understand this exercise, and he just sighed and said, me neither, we're in the same boat.
The relief you must have felt.
The relief was physical. I was still failing, but I was failing with a friend. Which leads us perfectly to our final idiom. Because sometimes being in that sinking boat together forces you to build a friendship that lasts a lifetime. The disaster creates a gift.
This is a profound philosophical concept captured by idiom number 20. A blessing in disguise.
Let's break the words down. A blessing is a wonderful, miraculous gift. A disguise is a cheap, ugly costume you wear to hide your true identity. So this idiom describes a wonderful gift that arrives wearing a terrifying, ugly mask.
That is a remarkably beautiful way to frame it. The formal meaning is something that seems bad at first but becomes good later. It is inherently retrospective.
Right, you don't see it in the moment.
No, when you are fired from a job, you do not feel blessed, you feel panicked. It is only months or years later when you look back that you can pierce the disguise and say losing that job was a blessing in disguise.
I experienced this personally. Years ago, my flight for a huge European vacation was canceled due to a massive snowstorm. I was devastated.
I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah. But because I stayed home, I ended up attending a local friend's birthday party that weekend, and that is where I met the woman who is now my wife.
Wow.
Like, a friend could say I was upset when the trip was canceled, and you'd reply, but then you got sick, or in my case, met someone, so maybe it was a blessing in disguise. The canceled trip was a brutal disappointment on Friday, but looking back, it was the greatest blessing in disguise of my entire life.
That reframing of adversity is incredibly powerful, and it brings our list full circle. We have navigated the icebreakers, the cakes, the camels, the weather, and the disguises. We've explored the deep psychology of 20 essential English idioms.
But listener, do not hit pause yet, because understanding the history and psychology of these phrases is only phase one. Our source material makes it very clear. If you want to sound like a native speaker, if you want to break past that B2 plateau, you have to actively deploy these in your own speech.
Which means we're entering section 7, the upgrading practice.
Yes, this is the crucial application phase.
We are going to look at several perfectly grammatical but overly literal sentences a beginner would use, and we're going to demonstrate how a native speaker instinctively upgrades them to convey the emotional nuance we've been discussing.
Okay, I will play the role of the beginner. I will give you a very simple, literal idea. You, the expert, will demonstrate how to improve it by applying an idiom from today's deep dive. Here is scenario 1. We are at the office, it is 6:30 p.m., the project is a mess, and we are staring at the screen. I say the literal fact. We should stop working now.
A native speaker would absorb the weariness of the room and upgrade that to, let's call it a day.
Do you hear the difference? We should stop working now. Sounds like a robot reporting its battery levels. Let's call it a day. Sounds human. It acknowledges the collective exhaustion. Okay, scenario 2. I wake up, my head is throbbing, and I call my manager. I say, I feel a little sick today.
To maintain professional boundaries while conveying the message, the upgrade is, I'm feeling under the weather.
It's just so much smoother. It doesn't invite the manager to ask if I have a stomach virus. It keeps the barrier up. Scenario 3. We walk out of a job interview. You ask me how the coding test was, and I say very flatly, that was very easy.
To inject color and confidence, you upgrade it to, that was a piece of cake.
It completely changes the swagger of the sentence. It implies not just that I passed, but that I wasn't even mentally taxed. Okay, scenario 4. We are both complaining about how our rent just increased. I state the literal fact, we both have the same problem.
To transform a sterile fact into a moment of human solidarity, you say, we're in the same boat.
It's beautiful. It goes from a spreadsheet data point to an emotional bond. Scenario 5. I show up 40 minutes late to a dinner party. I burst through the door embarrassed and say, I forgot about the time.
To soften the blow and imply that your focus was simply kidnapped by something engaging, you upgrade to, I lost track of time.
It feels less negligent. I forgot means my brain failed. I lost track implies the flow of time was tricky. Finally, scenario 6. We are trying to figure out who is driving to the conference next month. No one has decided, I say. We don't know the final plan yet.
To capture the feeling of waiting for gravity to resolve the chaos, the upgrade is, the plan is still up in the air.
I want to directly encourage you, the listener, to try replacing your simple sentences with these advanced phrases this week. Don't just nod along. Treat this as a tangible assignment.
Absolutely. When you find a task incredibly easy, bite your tongue before you say it's easy. Force yourself to say it's a piece of cake.
Right. When you are tired of studying English tonight, don't say, I'm stopping. Close your notebook and say out loud to your empty room, I'm calling it a day. You have to build the muscle memory.
It will feel performative at first, but if you hang in there, you will absolutely get the hang of it.
Look at you, stacking idioms like a pro. I love it. Okay, to lock this into everyone's short-term memory before they walk away, we need to do a rapid-fire recap. Let's run through the master list of all 20 phrases one last time.
Let the rhythm of these wash over you to cement the learning. Here we go. Break the ice. On the same page. A piece of cake.
Under the weather. Call it a day. Hang in there.
Get the hang of it. Beat around the bush. The last straw.
Out of the blue. Not my cup of tea. Up in the air.
Go with the flow. Keep an eye on. Lose track of time.
In the same boat. Take it with a grain of salt. A blessing in disguise.
Cut corners. And finally, easier said than done.
20 profound shortcuts to human connection. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on. We have spent this entire session dissecting the bizarre imagery of the English language.
We really have.
But the next time you speak in your native language, whether that is Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, German, whatever it is, pay close attention to the idioms you use without even thinking.
Oh, that is a shocking exercise. When you pause and actually translate your own daily phrases literally into English, you suddenly realize how unhinged your own language sounds to a foreigner.
Exactly. Imagine trying to look an English speaker in the eye and explain why you just talked about a goat or a flying dog or a shoe on the roof to explain a basic emotion. It reminds us that learning language isn't just about memorizing words, it's about learning how a whole culture sees the world.
That is an excellent perspective to end on. You aren't just learning words, you're learning a new way of seeing. Thank you for joining us as we navigated the wonderfully chaotic, deeply rewarding waters of conversational English.
Keep pushing, keep listening, and keep getting the hang of it. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.